This is Lair Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel. Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to this edition of the panel on Lair Media with myself, Pat Barry, and welcome Guy Jones along this evening.
Thank you, Pat.
And Guy is the chairman of the Irish Lebanese Cultural Foundation, and he's joining us this evening all the way from the Marble City, the city of Kilkenny. There you are. It's Kilkenny City, for people who may not know. It has a city status, you know.
That's
and a
right.
Beautiful castle and lovely pubs and all that, as we know ourselves. There's a few more to come into us. I was just chatting to Joy. We were just chatting before we came on air about the fact that this is a bank holiday weekend. We'll have to get used to this. Is a new bank holiday weekend celebrating St. Bridget. So there you go. And I had forgotten about it because, well, that's just me. Now, Guy, before we get into the other things as well, we have a few items as well to get through. We'll touch on immigration. We'll touch on our defence forces, of course, which is near and dear to our heart. Are they depleted to a very low number? And we'll also look at the conditions in our hospital. Anything else that we want to as well. But we're going to start off. There was a Saint Charbel. Saint Charbel. Now, for those who may not have known or know about Saint Charbel, her relic was on tour for a while there, Guy, Could you tell us, as I said to you before the program, I put my hands up, who was Saint Charbel? Am I saying it correctly?
No, it is correct. Saint Charbel is a monk of the Maronite order, which is the Catholic order of the Eastern Church. He was a hermit. He lived a monastic life in isolation, in prayer, and his name has gone brighter and brighter, and probably more worldwide than ever, for healing, and there are many testimonies of that fact. Now, Ireland, I remember, was a little bit kind of slow on adopting, let's say, this new saint to be introduced in Ireland. So recently there was an arrangement that was made between a group here in Ireland and a Maronite priest in France, and to bring in the relics and tour around. And actually, the priest himself could not make it, but somehow, and that's another miraculous, somehow the relics were here, and somehow there was, although the cancellation was supposed to take place, somehow every single event took place, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people attending churches, be it in Dublin, be it in Galway, in Fermoy, actually, in Waterford City. So it took its kind of importance. Saint Charbel's healing, and praying to Saint Charbel, asking him to convene for us, has brought a lots of good deeds and good testimonies for Lebanon and for this Lebanese saint,
And is he an important saint in that area of the world, in Lebanon and around there?
Yes, and what is amazing, Pat?
Yeah.
What is amazing, Pat, is the fact that he is serving, or has served, anyone who pleaded to him. It could have been, there was a testimony about a year or 2 years ago of a Shia Muslim cleric whose mother was healed by Saint Charbel, and here he is standing. Oh yeah, it's amazing. And this is not the first case. It's global. Some people are reporting they would be in Miami or California or something, that they have actually heard of him prayed, and some magical effect has happened, and therefore his name is worldwide right now. So St. Charbel's relics were in Ireland, and that is probably, hopefully, a
And
blessing for
and
Ireland and a blessing for the people who
what
attend.
were the apparel and stuff that was associated with the saint himself?
The power of healing, I believe, has been probably one part of the church, and I believe that there mustn't have been lots of work in that area. And it seems when people have pleaded to Saint Charbel, they were actually served back with graces, etc. So this is the reason why of the name and fame, and that's the reason why Saint Charbel's relics visiting Ireland would have been an important link between, again, Ireland and Lebanon on that level. I myself, I was a third party. I tried to just inform the Lebanese community that the relics
Yeah,
are here and to attend, etc. But the whole movement was organized between an Irish party that is close to the church, who organized the tour with this Lebanese priest. And now it has taken lots of importance, lots of importance.
so, and this was the Mennonite order, and also the Saint Charbel. Were some of those uh, events held in Catholic churches or Christian
Yes.
churches? Or
No, they're
yes,
all in Catholic churches.
and
Um,
there were no problems or anything.
No, because it is actually the same liturgy, really.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
we were just on the Eastern Church, and
yes.
all the books are, if you take it literally, they're literally the same.
Yeah.
Um, so that's why there is no really any sort of clash. We're not kind of introducing a new religion, kind of. So no,
No,
in my opinion, there are many people that I met. Say, for instance. Headford in County Galway.
yeah,
They have St. Mary's Church, and it is dedicated to St. Charbel's healing. And they have the relics. They have, and they hold masses every Sunday for healing masses for St. Charbel.
yeah.
You know that this concept of healing may be controversial. You know, even at very high level in the clergy. So I believe they kind of said, "Sure, why not? Let's bring this on board, and we will see how it goes." And I think it is hopefully, coming back to benefit everybody who seeks
Well,
this.
I mean, we have a good history. I mean, when I say we have the Catholic Church, Christian Church have a good positive history of the power of prayer and healing. There's a good tradition of it in the church. It's up to the individual, as you know. It's up to the individual themselves whether they believe in something or they accept something. That's an individual thing. But by and large, you had the relics of Padre Pio around. The relics
Oh
of
yeah.
the little flower came around a couple of years back. I remember, and it's people like that. But religion is important in people's lives. I mean, I think some people sometimes, for whatever reason, and some of them are justified, not being able to discuss spirituality or your well-being or prayer or religion like that. It is an essential part of the human psyche, the human makeup. And so it's important for people to be able to express it as well.
One thing that strikes me, Pat, is that the closer you are to the east and to Jerusalem, the more the feeling or the attachment to religion is fervent. And seemingly out here in the West, we have put up the values of the day-to-day, the modern life, let's say, to occupy a very important part in our life, putting
Yeah,
aside the matters of the soul or matters of the heart. And at one stage, it was sad to see the religious Ireland or Irish traditions fading away a little bit and then receding, and then the attendance in churches is actually only limited to either a first communion or attending a wedding. There aren't, it's less than
yeah,
what it used to be. So
Yeah,
in a way, you know, the wave that when the Polish came to Ireland, etc., you could see that the churches are full again, and that has kind of snowballed a little bit. It has created a little bit of a return, I'll say, back to faith. You know.
that's right. And as you said, we as we get away from the center where most of those religions came. I know when my daughter and husband were working in Haifa. When
Hmm.
I went to there's definite. I mean, I'm talking about my personal feeling myself now. Everything else up to anybody else. Going up to Mount Carmel, there's a feeling. There's a
Yeah.
definite feeling that you don't get going anywhere else. I mean, around there's that association with the spirit, with the mysticism, with all of that. That feeling you get. I mean, I'm sure you know where Mount Carmel is yourself, anyway.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
The association with spirituality and all things like that, you
Correct.
do get there. You do feel it.
Correct.
But
Yeah. Someday, Pat, we will. I would be very happy to discuss this with you. It's the you know the Terra Santa, which is Holy Land,
Holy Land. Yeah.
and where it extends, because Holy Land is not just in Palestine, Israel. It's
Oh
actually
no.
extends a bit further and wider, even hitting a good chunk of the south of Lebanon as well. So
Yes.
I
As
remember
as mm,
many
as
years
Christ,
ago.
exactly. The Holy Land is not one country,
Maybe.
and I think anybody who has an appreciation of, or I don't mean an understanding, but just has read a bit and understanding, would know what Guy is talking about. And there's no doubt about that, you know. But it's the association overall that area with all the different religions, you know, going back to Zoroaster and even further, you know, uh,
Yes.
that association is just, well, it goes back to the mists of time, as we say, you know.
Yeah.
And before people get surprised looking at this program after, we're not going to break into any version of the mass ranting or the Latin mass or the
Yeah.
Irish mass, even though I attended all of them down to
Did
the
you?
but
Okay.
but I think it's important, Guy, all right, because we are
Yeah,
made up of both physical and spiritual beings. That's what we are.
that's for
And
sure.
as you said, we can worship at the altar of consumerism and capitalism to our detriment, I think myself, you know, and it's reflected sometimes in so-called entertainment, both in the arts and in film and
Yeah.
in that as well. And you can see the vulgarity, for the want of a better word. And we're not holier down when we say that. I'm just saying that I was looking at something before I came up. I'm in Mary's house, and I'll back in my own house on a few days, so it's finished, thanks be to God. But looking at something on television, and
Hmm.
it just struck me as being an odd entertainment at 7 o'clock in the evening, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I won't mention anymore. But I think that we will, as you said, we will have a discussion on that whole area, you know, because you know, you have a whole association with all of the area, as I said, with all, whether it's the Jewish, the Muslim, the Christian, they're all there. Like, you had the Mennonites on Mount Carmel, you had the Templars on Mount Carmel awaiting to remember
Yes.
that, awaiting for the return of Christ, you know, and all that. You had different, anyway, people. It's fascinating actually, and it's history. And it's history, and I think people should be informed of it, you know. Now, so saying just we come back to the circle. So Saint Charbel's relics, and were they here before, Guy?
They were here. They are here actually now, currently present all the time at Headford Church of St. Mary's. So
In
there
Saint,
is
in Saint Mary's Church in Headford in Galway,
correct.
there
Yeah,
the relic of Saint Charbel is present all the time.
all the time, permanently. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't know that though. So
yeah.
people who are interested, yeah, go on.
That's kind of been there since probably 2018.
All right.
Oh
So
yes.
there you are. Now, for you, for all our listeners and viewers later on, you can look up the history of Saint Charbel And as Guy said, the relic of Saint Cherubel is in Saint Mary's Church in Headford in County Galway. We'll put up a link to that with the show later on for people who may be interested in that, because I know lots of people will be interested, Guy. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that, you know.
Yeah, Father Ray Flaherty is the carer, and he went to Lebanon and he visited the
All
shrine
right.
of. Oh yes, so he's extremely,
And where is Saint Cherubel buried?
um, up the mountain from Byblos, which is Jbeil, the old city of Byblos. So it's not very far. Like, and if you're driving up, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes, and you're there.
Oh.
That's the monastery, and this is where the isolated place where he was in prayer. And the story is amazing. And there's even a movie, I believe, about Saint Charbel that is available, I think, on YouTube.
Oh, really? We'll check that
Yeah.
out now. Yeah, I'd be interested. I love historical things like that, you know, and because it'd be anyway. Uh, the panel is the program here with Guy Jones and myself on Sunday, the 5th of February, 2023. If you want to come on any night with us, all you have to do is email us info@theirmedia.tv. Send us your details, and hey presto, you're on screen. Who knows, you may be a big star like we are someday. You never know. Now, now I have, as well as Guy, now I have an interest in the Irish Army, having served in it myself. And Guy, of course, being from Lebanon, I don't have to tell Guy about the Irish Army either, because there's a. By the way, Guy, that piece we did last week with Lebanon and the UN, people were amazed at the long association with the Irish Defence Forces and that area of you think of it in the 70s, 80s or something, you know, when they were put the association back to the 1950s, they were astonished with them, you know, for people who may not be interested. But anyway, the depletion, I think, of the Defence Forces, the low numbers, and when we're talking about Defence Forces, we're talking about the Irish Army and the Navy and the Air Corps as well, you know. I think there must have been 20,000 or some plus in it when I was in it. You know, when I was in the Army back in the 1970s. It's gone down to under 8,000 or less today, you know. And I don't know myself. I think there has to be a whole reappraisal and realignment. And I think there has to be a proper study carried out, because these people are servants of the state. They serve the state faithfully, without fuss, without anything. And many of them have lost their lives in the service of their state, whether it's abroad or at home. And I think there has to be some kind of, I don't know what it is, more of an appreciation, for the want of a better word, of our defence forces. Because Guy hosted a lot of events during the year, and we met, and I'm absolutely delighted that he's one of the few people who include the Irish Army in those meetings and in those gatherings as well, and acknowledge them. And I think there's not enough of that, Guy. I don't think there's not enough appreciation of it, I think, myself, you know.
One of the things that surprised me most is that, as you said, there were probably 20,000 back then, you know, when you joined. And to say that we are nearly 7,900, which is probably nearly 8,000 member or personnel. And it seems that the retention, being able to retain who you have and who you have trained, is a very hard mission to do. So in my opinion, there are a couple of things that can be done, because I have advised a long time ago, particularly when I was talking sometime to people in foreign affairs, that and when you mentioned that there will be an ambassador joining us on the panel, or a former ambassador joining us, I was delighted with this news. Fact is, nobody knows. Nobody had ever sat down to have a coffee with a member of foreign affairs and to hear them talk about what they do. Nobody knows what they do. We only hear that there is ambassador this or ambassador that, or there is a mission over here or a mission there, but we don't really know what they do their daily. And it was amazing when you sit down and hear what they say. And that's my experience with the Irish Defence Forces. So many times I have met the veterans and I have met people who are still in the service and
Yeah.
tell me stories about my own country, Lebanon. And they
Yes.
are telling you stories which probably you wouldn't find anywhere. You wouldn't find them in a book. You
No.
wouldn't find them. They are things that happened during difficult times or better times, and their love for the country that they have served so well, etc. My opinion is they have not been rewarded enough in terms of national appreciation, number one. Number
Yeah.
two, remuneration. They are always leveling themselves to what the private sector is doing, or perhaps sometimes to what other public sectors are doing. And they
Yeah.
are actually, in my opinion, they are not paid accordingly. And they need that kind of stability. When you're leaving your own family to go and serve abroad, you need that kind of assurance, or that kind of so when the mind is at ease that your own are actually okay, they're home, they're warm, they're fine, perhaps you can serve even better. Yeah, in my opinion.
Yeah.
uh, Plus the fact that um, so you need to keep them, you need to look after them. Number two, the country needs them. And I know that if you're talking to a politician, they would be talking about a non-productive sector. They are a non-productive sector. They are not the sector that is actually generating any income or any profit to the state. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
I do, but as you said, when you look at the Irish Army, they are representing the state. Say recently now in the Lebanon, they've been a small presence in Afghanistan as observers, and in Syria, going back to the Congo, which is my first real awakening of the Irish Army in the Congo. And so they are our representatives abroad. As you said, they may not, but the what let's say the reputation of the Irish Army as peacekeepers is second to none. And I'm not saying that
Absolutely.
because I'm in Ireland and I'm Irish. That's if you speak to anybody abroad, as you said, as you know yourself, Guy,
Yeah,
their reputation is outstanding, and
absolutely.
they've served in Kosovo and all of that as well, as observers, as part and parcel of the peacekeeping force. So they have huge experience. And Mary, my colleague here in their media, what's the word I'm looking for? Interviewed the Irish ambassador to the United States, Dan Mulhall. There was it about a year and a half ago, and he had the same. Even though he's in America, he's been around the world. He's been all over the place. Dan Mulhall, but he his appreciation and understanding of ceremony of people representing the country is second to none. It certainly came across that way anyway. And I think that the Irish Army are part and parcel of that.
And that's the reputation they have built, and that is the reputation that they have within UNIFIL and within the United Nations. Saying that, Ireland now is labeled as a hub for peace, such as, remember, having the North-South agreement had broken a very long and standing conflict.
Yes, it did.
To sit down and sign it, and that, in my opinion, stopped a war that is going on since 832 years. So so it's a huge thing, and it is an example for us outside looking at Ireland. Say, if the Irish conflict was resolved, our own conflicts, wherever they are around the world, can be resolved too, when people at odds sit down at a same table and talk about the common interest. So Ireland has already a good reputation for peace. Number two, they're outstanding and long-standing, um, uh, inclusion in UN peacekeeping missions around the world.
Yeah.
Number three, the Kora had become um, a study for all armies around the world to actually come to the Kara and learn about peacekeeping and learn about how the process is, etc. So it is something that we can actually sell as a product if it happens this way. That
Yeah.
come and study the North-South conflict. Come and study how the Irish managed to do the peace process, how it took, what were the steps that were taken, how we reached there. Um, these are the things, and I
Well,
said it before. I think, Pat, you're going to be surprised. You're going to be surprised at this, but I said it before. When the Irish uprising happened back in 1916, the whole entire world was focused on how did Ireland do it, and then again you take it back a few years down the line. How did the Irish resolve the issue? In my opinion, this is the top of um, diplomacy, conflict resolution. So we have a lot that we can give to the world,
we can.
and it is also thanks to those ambassadors who are actually across the world doing a peacekeeping mission on behalf of Ireland.
Without a shadow of a doubt. And I know myself, for people who lived through that time, but you didn't have to live through that time to appreciate the volatility. 1969, 1970, 71. I was
Yeah,
doing border duty as my colleagues, comrades were as well.
yeah,
And people have no idea how close we came. We were on the border, young lads at this side, speaking to more young lads in another uniform, the British Army on the other side, exchanging fags and having a crack. I mean, they were young lads, we were young lads. People have no idea how close we came. We could have
yes,
come to an all out conflict. And I'm not saying that lightly, I'm saying it was very, very close many times, that idea. And yet, we persevered with diplomacy, as you rightly said, on both sides. But that's where we called in all our experience, from our experience in the Lebanon early on, from our experience in the Congo. We had that. You have a residue of experiences in the Irish Army that you do not get anywhere else for resolving and stopping conflict,
that's right.
and appreciate. You have that, as you said, that experience there, that it can't be taught, and some of it cannot be taught.
Correct. So taking this, and this wealth of knowledge there, and project it um, into the fact that the Irish can actually are involved into this sector, which is the military sector, is a non-productive sector. Okay, let's put it this way, and it is actually draining the resources of the government because it's all paid into wages, into equipment, etc., etc., and it doesn't give you back, right? Fine,
Yeah.
but this is the backbone. This is the backbone. If something happens, say for instance, you have a huge storm out there, or you have a flooding somewhere, or you have your air traffic is stopped, and there's a strike somewhere, and they are calling the army to come in, fill in those positions, and
Yeah.
keep the country running. So they
Absolutely.
are the backbone. So it's like the insurance that you buy. You buy the insurance, you may never get sick, right? But you are paying for it anyway, for the just
Yes.
in case. That's exactly how it should. And we should be generous, and we should look after them because they are the backbone that we always fall back to. This is my opinion.
Yeah, and as I said, well, I'm certainly at one with you there, Guy, because I said that, as we said at the beginning of this piece. I mean, we understand, of course, that there's every department. There's 15 government departments, and they all look for money, and rightly so. They all look for their piece of the pie. But I think that our defence forces as a whole should be a consideration. First and foremost, as you said, not in the sense that they produce the goodwill, they produce the status of peacekeepers, of conflict solvers, and you cannot buy that. And really, they have that residue, as I said, and hopefully, when they're looking again, as they do many times, at the defence forces, at the numbers, not alone should they really increase the numbers up to a decent level, but also, as you said, Guy, in making your commentary, is that they should have it should be a real career for people, and they'll be able to retain and keep people in the army because they'll be able to earn a decent living. That's all anybody ever wants, And I said, and they want to serve their country as well, and they shouldn't be taken for granted, as sometimes they can be, and that's the way reality is. But anyway, you listen to the panel here with Guy Jones and myself on Sunday. Press the red button on the right-hand side to subscribe to our channel and tell all your friends about us. And we thank you very much for all the good figures from the last time. Now, Guy, well, I was just saying before we came on air that Sweden recently had a different approach to immigration. Well, not a different approach. They have rules and regulations as they do about immigration in every country, You or I couldn't fly on a plane tonight and land in John F. Kennedy Airport without any passport or papers in our pocket. Because if we did, we wouldn't get out of the airport. There's no doubt about that. We just would not get out of the airport.
Yeah.
But Sweden recently deported over 1,500 families. Now, when you read that, and they just didn't decide today that those 1,500 families are going away, are being deported. These are families of people who may not understand these things. There's a process you go through, the same as I don't know what the process in this country, to be quite honest with you. I'm ashamed to say I don't know what the full process is, I don't know, Guy. But where did you come across that?
This information came in because we're talking about 1,500 families of Lebanese who are actually asked to leave Sweden very soon. Now, these families have been in Sweden for quite a number of years. They might actually even have children who are born in Sweden. They probably, all of them, speak the language already, Swedish, and they're totally integrated. But yet, because of the formalities and the procedures, they're not going well. And Sweden took this approach of, first of all, going worldwide to all their agencies and all their embassies around the world, to put on leaflets and to put on programs to explain what is the procedure to actually go to Sweden legally.
Okay.
And they are making it, and they put it to the countries, and especially the countries who have lots of citizens leaving and going to Sweden, such as in this case Lebanon, for instance. They're approaching these issues in two different ways. One of them is the diplomatic approach to actually tell the government, the Lebanese government, you have to take them back. And if the government is not responding well, they are taking other measures, such as, for instance, stopping the aid. Okay, like we have Irish Aid, and it has a hand almost in every pie around the world, because they do support lots of causes here and there.
Yes.
So, say for instance, Irish Aid. So they were actually telling them that, look, this is going to suffer now because of some decisions that you are taking. Making visa or accessing to the country very, very difficult for the normal person to actually just go there. Family reunions. This used to be a quiet European law, whereby if, say, I am an immigrant and I'm living in Ireland, I want to bring my mother-in-law so she can live with us, something like this. This is called family reunion. It used to be arranged if in the certain conditions. Sweden is calling for making it much tougher for anybody to actually do a family reunion. So they're taking the right measures, and one of them is tell people that you are not going to Sweden on a holiday. It's going to be hardship. It's going to be not correct. You better make the legal steps before you go, rather than going there illegally, because we're going to
All
send you.
right.
So this is the measure that they are taking. There's nothing inhumane in this, nothing at all inhumane, because they are still studying the cases which need to be considered. But at the same time, they have formulated a law to actually allow them to deport those who came into the country illegally, such as you are not allowed to arrive to a Swedish border without having a travel document.
And that travel document would be an official document acquired in the embassy.
Yeah, say a passport or something. You
Yeah,
cannot just present yourself at the desk and say, sorry, I don't have a passport. And this is happening all the time.
Oh, I see. And what happens in that case? Are you arrested or
They
turned
lose
away?
it. They lose it along the way because, okay, they boarded, everything is okay. They lose it so they can arrive and say, I'm claiming asylum.
Okay.
And then the state takes them immediately. So they're saying, you arrive to the desk and you don't have a passport, you are straight back on the same flight that you came in.
Now, I know in Ireland's case, I mean, if people are there for a number of years, and if they have children born in the country, are those children citizens of Sweden automatically, like we have in Ireland?
I'm definitely sure it is the law, and it's across the board, that a child born in Sweden is a Swedish citizen. But I think there was a law as well here in Ireland where it does not entitle a foreigner to just have an Irish child or Irish-born child. It does not give that person automatically the residency in the country.
Yeah, it did before, but we changed
It did
that
before.
ourselves. Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
does that pertain in Sweden as well? Even though your children are Swedish citizens, your parents may not be Swedish citizens. So therefore, this would, and they could obviously deport you, and obviously, well, you can't leave your kids behind, you know.
Yeah.
So you have to take them as well.
So, Pat, this trend is going to now, I'm sure it's going to be discussed in our own parliament here. And I'm definitely sure that you will see some new legislation coming out very soon.
Well, I know that
issues
we know a guy from the news reports. We know from speaking to people informally. We know from different reports that we are under severe as a country for accommodation, irrespective of what wars are going. We're under severe, and so therefore, when that happens, the strains already on our ability to house our own citizens, as well as people who are legitimately claiming asylum. And then there's a special status for Ukrainians because of the war. So with all those three categories of people, we have simply run out of accommodation. I don't mean run out, but we're at crisis point. And as you said, they are seriously looking now, whereby before you could get off a plane in Dublin Airport and disappear out the airport and gone. That's not good. That's going to change.
I'm definitely sure there are those measures are kicking in very soon. And in fairness, it is actually fair for everyone involved, because you see, I tell you something. This is one of the biggest things that I have always thought of, but perhaps never spoken about. You see, take Australia, for instance. It's a country like Canada. These are countries of immigration. They actually need people, and they ask for people. They issue a revised statement probably every month. It used to be every 3 months, and it used to be earlier every 6 months, about the needs that the economy wants right now. Say, for instance, our economy requires carpenters. So therefore, if you're a carpenter, you're just arrived at the right time. Next month, it could be a totally different thing, and you're not welcome to log in. You know what I'm saying? So they actually pick on the what suits the country and what serves the economy, and therefore anybody who's been accepted as an immigrant, be it to Canada or be it to Australia, is actually almost have a reserved place in the economy system, you know. So it is an amazing thing. We did not adopt this road in Europe, and it beats me why. I don't understand why.
We
We still
didn't. We didn't.
today, you see, if you say, for instance, if you need somebody, a technician for the TV, right, and you couldn't source this person in Europe, what do? You actually have to outsource if you want to keep your business going, right? So what
Mhm.
do? You know, you have to post the job, and you have to say, I need these qualifications. I need a person who's able to do so and so a job. So
And my,
hence there is a response to a demand rather than
I know,
being imposed on you, and you're going to try to habilitate the people that you have into, or recycle them into something that the economy could use. So courses of this, I don't know what, I mean.
well, trades in general were downgraded. You know, they were downgraded for the service industry, for the IT and tech, and that was important too. Trades like plumbers,
Mhm.
carpenters, joiners, roofers, skilled masons, stonemasons, you know, block layers, you know, builders, they were all downplayed. Now they are what we require today critically in our economy to build houses, for instance.
Correct.
Skilled people to build houses, build roads, build bridges. These should be on a par with any job out there, any job. And I'm not knocking doctors and solicitors, and you know they're all needed as well.
True.
But for them to live, they need to live in a house with water, with floors, with ceilings, with walls, and you know these are we have a huge shortage of skilled people. I know my own son is a qualified carpenter, but he doesn't work in that job at the time anymore because he couldn't make a living one time out of it. You know, he couldn't make a living
Yeah,
when the kids came out, so he had to change. But I know now that
yeah.
uh,
It's a
there's a
skill
huge
on demand.
skill, yeah. But that's the situation in Sweden. I mean, and was that law there all the time, Guy? And
No, no.
these people that you're talking about, these families, they they're they have roots in the country. They have settled in the country. They have kids going to school and possibly working in the country. So, um, will there be? Is there other avenues they can explore to improve their situation, for the want of a better word, you know?
I think the approach taken is, you came in illegally, you have to go back and reapply to come back legally, something like this. It's a bit drastic as it is, but I believe that the country is suffering from, the illegal immigration, and it is an attraction to go to Sweden, to be quite honest, because the Swedish people have always very well treated the people coming
Have,
in, always, and this is
absolutely.
probably where the attraction is coming from.
And so there would be a sizable enough Lebanese minority there.
Oh yeah, I mean, I knew back in the years, back in 1975, I knew the consul of Sweden in Lebanon, and I knew how many families have actually emigrated to Sweden,
Hmm.
but all proper immigration
Yeah,
procedures, not just
yeah,
arriving. In the last few years, I'm definitely sure this exceeds 10 to 15 years. In the last 10 or 15 years,
yeah.
they must have been kind of, yeah, sure, yeah, we'll take them, yeah, sure, we'll take them, and then eventually a crisis is happening, and we can't take anymore, and we cannot process the ones that we have. So therefore, listen, guys, you came
I
illegally, you're
know.
gonna go back.
I mean, there has been a huge displacement in the whole Middle East, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon. There's been a huge
Yeah.
misplacement of people
Yeah.
there, together with all along Libya and all along there with all that area. There's been a huge movement of people. And obviously, uh, um, there has been a positive reaction by and large, but for the most part. But there's been a huge challenges then for countries as well, to receive those people. And I think that by and large but there seems to be a huge amount of movement still from that area of the world because of the volatility of the area and the fact that there isn't, like, Syria isn't settled, Afghanistan now again, Iraq isn't settled, Iran, there's a huge upsurge of protests there now, and there seems to be a very young population in Iran, Guy,
Yes.
very
Yes.
young,
Yes.
I don't know what's going to happen there in the end, whether the mullahs will hand over power, I don't know myself. I don't know. But I
Not
think
easily.
no. I know an awful lot. I know quite a few Iranians in Ireland. I know a good few Iranian families, and still friends of mine from Cork and around the place. And people are throwing their hat at the country, and I don't mean that in a blasé way. I mean, young people who are educated, qualified, are gone. They're gone out of the country, and except there's going to be change from within the country, I think that it will suffer in the long term, which is unfortunate. I wouldn't like to see a war or anything there, by the way, wouldn't like to see that happening. But
you know that in Lebanon we have 1.5 million Syrian refugee in the country, and because it wasn't organized at all. It was just people who came in, and then they lived actually everywhere. So the UN and the agencies have always been able to supply them with the basic food, basic medication, and even supporting them with schooling, etc. So
right,
the country Lebanon is actually suffering from this huge influx. I mean, just imagine in Ireland we're taking 1.5 million refugee, right? I don't think Ireland with 75,000 is actually struggling at the moment, and the figures are anticipated to be 150,000. And I'm telling you about a country that is similar size,
taking
having
1.5 million.
Now,
And
I cannot,
do they
nor
speak?
do they.
Do they speak the same language?
Yeah, it's the same language, and even our customs are very, very close anyway. But
right.
But for your understanding and mine, when I am a refugee in a country, such as, let's say, a Syrian refugee in Lebanon, let's say, and I go for a weekend to check on my mother who is in Syria or my father who is in Syria.
Yes.
I am no longer a refugee. I mean, if I am able to go back and forth just to check on my family back and forth,
yes,
you are not a refugee.
No.
So therefore, Lebanon is actually like hands up, that we can do absolutely nothing about this situation, because if they go back to Syria, they lose the perks, they lose the UN support and this and that. And this is where Ireland at the UN Security Council, in the last period, was able to create a zone that allows the NGOs and allows the UN agencies to come in and actually give the money and give the support to the people who return to Syria. And this would have been one of the best initiatives ever, because it means that if I need to go back to Syria, I know now that my support system is not going to be cut off. Because if you're going back to your demolished home or your demolished business, you are not going to be able to take it up again. But if I still have support, then I'll go and I start building it up slowly, and reestablish myself. So there is a lot to be said about asylum seeking, and a lot to be said about immigration. And I'm definitely sure these few weeks will show us a little bit more about what's going to happen here as well.
And I mean, there isn't enough discussion. There isn't enough discussion. I didn't realize the figure was that high, 1.5 million people, and the same population as Ireland, really more or less speaking. And 1.5 million people, that's astonishing. And there's no discussion. And do many of them go back? What have they to go back to? What kind of situation in Syria? You don't hear much about the country anymore, you know?
Okay, 70% of Syria is actually now settled down and business as usual. Let's say there is
Right.
still there's still an area where anything can happen in that area, and it is very much under the influence right now of Turkey. So Turkey has actually gone into Syria, and they have troops as well, etc. And it seems that it has balanced out. So there is nothing really moving on the ground. There are no battles, no civil war. It's kind of calmed down completely to an
And
extent where yeah, if you left because you were afraid for your safety, well, you can very well go back now because it is safe in those areas. So
right. And
uh,
is Assad still in charge?
yeah, very much so, but definitely not with the same clout or not with the same vanity maybe that was before, because war has eaten out of the clout and of the powers that any government would have.
And so there'd be a possibility of some kind of a parliamentary structure. So, um, is the
Well,
United Nations have their presence there?
the UN is present from the fact that our Irish troops are in the Golan Heights. So yes, the
Oh
UN
yeah,
is there.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, but we should not actually forget what is happening on the ground now. You have the Revolutionary Guard, which is the Iranian Guard in Syria. You
Hmm.
still have the Russians who have a naval base in Syria, plus
Hmm.
the anti-aircraft network that they're operating in the country,
Yeah.
and you still have up in the north the problem with the Kurds. Uh, this
Oh
is
yes.
this is where the interest of Turkey is. They are after those people, so they are existent there. Plus, ISIS is not totally gone.
No, but Turkey have a military presence now in Syria,
Yes, that's right.
so they would be supporting, I suppose, Assad really. So sort of a figurehead to
The
keep
the
some
Turks
kind
the
of,
Turks would
yeah,
not be supporting Assad. They
wouldn't
would
they?
not be. No, no, no. They're totally against. And in fact, they're more dwelling on a protection for the remaining Sunni population, and this is where, and they're seizing this
Yes,
opportunity to get
yes.
into the country now. Recently, on the diplomatic level, it seems that Russia has entered, on the line where we can bring perhaps Assad and Erdogan of Turkey to sit down and talk their problems together under the cover of Russia and Putin and his foreign affairs minister. So it looks like it is a door for them to actually try to negotiate something. The balances there in the Middle East are very, very tricky, Pat. We're not going to be able to
Oh
put it.
no, I mean, as you're speaking, guys. Not that I'm not paying attention. I'm thinking of all the other countries down below and all around. It's weird. What do you do? I think when you go back to, we'd finish on this note and that, because as you said, we go around in circles again. We'll be in Jerusalem in a minute. We'll back to Damascus, back to Ankara and all, and back to Moscow. But when the division of that area was done, do you remember back in the 19 with the Balfour
Mhm.
Declaration?
Yes,
That I'm not blaming that for all the ills. I'm just saying there wasn't enough care or appreciation taken of the existing people who dwelt there. And did
yes,
the Westerns did not. It's easy in hindsight, but it should have been obvious. The Westerns did not take into account the tribal structures of the people of the area. It
yeah.
wasn't just geographical. It was the
It
tribal structures as well.
The damage was done by the Sykes-Picot agreement. This is the one that actually split the whole entire area, creating new countries, drawing lines on sand, like a straight line. This is like
Look,
the border between Jordan and Iraq, straight lines with Syria as well.
Is there a river? Is there a river over there? Let's draw that.
They don't care.
Yeah, is there a river over
line.
there? The border there, I mean, really,
matter.
you're right. Just like Yugoslavia. God help, where's poor old Marshal Tito when you're needed? And I don't mean that. I'm not just being flippant now, really. It's not being unfair,
But Charles de Gaulle said once, when you tackle anything in the Middle East, always go with simple ideas, because it's so complicated. You'll never get out of the problem.
well, I know you. And I mean, the rich heritage, history, and the whole food, the whole culture, and I suppose when you look at that whole area, what came from it, the civilizations that you can hark back to, people should not forget that. They should keep that to the forefront of their thinking when they're sitting down, as you said, around the table from each other, and look at what they have in common, not the differences that they may have. Look what we have in common and work on from there, I mean, really. Anyway, we won't solve it tonight, but we'll go. By the way, before we finish, I got a few more messages, but I can't read them out because I can't read them out because I haven't read them all myself yet. That's why I can't read them out. But so St. Cherbyl, just for the people who know, we'll put up a link to the program when we put up on our YouTube channel. St. Cherbyl's relics in St. Michael's Church, is it? In Headford. St. Mary's Church in Headford, for people who may be interested in following up that guy. And hopefully we've come to the end of the second edition of the panel. We'll be crowded next Sunday night. Tell all your friends about us, because we have confirmation of, I think we'll have an independent TD. I won't mention their name yet, but they're more or less 90% sure being on. We'll have a TD then, as I said, guy at the top of the program, every week with us from a different background to feed into what's happening in Parliament. We don't get enough of that, and they'd be happy to do it, 4 or 5 of them anyway. So from Guy Jones and from myself, until we meet again next Sunday night, Guy, it's been a blast, a pleasure again, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So take care, good luck, and thank you.
Thank you.
This is Lair Media. To whom it concerns, welcome to the panel.